This is the inaugural Zoom / in-person Think by Design workshop. And so the reason why I run these workshops is my commitment to people is that they get healthy and they are able to do the things that they love doing, right? Now, to do that, you have to address different, all the different areas of your life. Mm-hmm. And I personally think that this Think by Design workshop is probably the most important thing that I do, which is funny because I don't really charge for it. And I make more money through my hands doing chiropractic work. But I don't want people in my office there every single week because they don't know what the other things they're supposed to be doing, right? Now, it doesn't mean that you won't be in there every week. Yeah, like I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and that's just not a really smart thing for my body, right? The point of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to break your opponent's joints. So I have to go and see my chiropractor a bit more often. But my point here is if you meet all the different requirements on a regular basis, then most people can achieve a greater level of health and happiness. And you can, and more importantly than that, that allows you to do the things you love doing. Yeah. So without getting deeply into my story, like I really thought that like being sick all the time was normal. Yeah. And I've shared this with a couple of you before. Like I just thought it was normal to get sick 3, 4, 5 times a year.
Yep, same.
And if I got sick, I went to the doctor who wanted to help me, and he gave me antibiotics, and he helped me, and I got better. Except I get sick again, and I didn't know about half the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. So that's why I run these. That is again why I run these workshops, and it's why I'm very excited that you're here, because I get to share this with you, and then hopefully at least you'll walk away with one thing. Like if you walk away with one action, that one action will produce great results over time. Okay. So our whole ethos is around the fact that we believe that every human being is designed to be extraordinary. Like if you think about how amazing your body is, if you got a cut on your hand, like what would happen? What happens?
Those million little cells working to clean up, correct, heal.
Yeah.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, million cells, and it heals and it repairs itself. Now, at any point, would you look at your hand and think, I wonder if that's going to get better?
No, because it hangs.
Yeah, well, exactly. It would be a weird thought. Like no one has that thought, right?
Yeah.
Unless you have some sort of disease or disease process going on. I'm just double checking because I know there's another guy that's going to jump on at some point. I've realized that I don't know if I can see it in this display.
Sorry.
Escape, just escape and you'll get out.
I just want to check that there's, because I know another guy is supposed to be jumping on. I know he's driving home to out west. Oh man. My computer's on like the go slow approach right now. But I don't. Well, I don't think he's on. Oh, there you go. There was another one. Admit. Hey, Georgia. All right. Hey, Georgia. Thanks for jumping on. Sorry that I took so long to get you on.
No, you're good.
Just occurred to me that when I set this whole thing up that I didn't automatically enter.
That is okay.
Is why I run these workshops, which is basically to make everybody healthy and happy. And what I'm talking about now is the fact that so your body really is designed to be healthy and happy, okay? Like it's just designed that way. So if we want to be healthy, then we've got to do certain things. So what we're specifically going to go through is why we're actually here, in a little bit more depth. We're going to go through how my brain actually works. We're going to go through the 5 basic steps. And we're going to get my stop here. So the first thing, why are we here? Yeah. So for me, it's I want to be like surfing when I'm in my 90s. Yeah, I want to be doing jiu-jitsu in my 90s. I don't want to be like the other guy in this picture.
Mhm.
Yeah. I want to be hanging out with my kids. Yeah. Like I love hanging out with Willow, like and Vicky, like they're the two of the most important things in my life. And I know that to do that, I have to do certain things. So my question for you right now, and I just want you to take a mental note. Actually, no. Let's get a couple of people. What is it that you want to produce in terms of your life and your health? Like, what do you want to be able to do as life goes on?
I want to be able to teach dancing until I'm old.
You want to be how old?
70.
70?
Again.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
At the moment, my body's not bowing, and it's breaking my heart because my dancing's my happy place.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to be able to dance in your 70s?
Yeah.
Right?
Because I know I can make a massive impact on kids' lives.
Excellent.
And I need that. I need my body to be able to function to do that.
You do? Okay, cool. All right. Anybody else? We'll take one more person. Anybody want to share? What would you like 5, 10, 20, 50 years? What do you want to be able to do? Like, why would you waste an hour and a half of your life tonight? What do you want to achieve? Kayla, Rachel, Georgia, anyone want to jump on?
Well, obviously, eternal youth would be fabulous.
Okay.
Why are you laughing, Gareth? Huh?
Because my own belief system just got challenged, Rachel. That's why.
Wow. That's what I'm here for, baby. Ha ha ha.
Cool. Well, and that's the thing. Like, that's quite good. Eternal youth. So, if we go to some more like physical things, I could go somewhere else with that. But if we just look physically, like, why not be like when I talk about, I don't want to necessarily live forever.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I mean that's a nice idea, but like in reality, at some point I'm gonna die. But like, I don't want to be like that guy before, where you're having to live off medication.
I guess that begs the question: is aging a disease, though, or
Yeah.
is it just a process?
Yeah,
So
it's exactly, yeah. Oh man, it's so good. We're going to talk about more of this stuff tonight. Yeah, is it just as a disease or as a process, right? So I want to be able to, if I die at 90 something, if I die at 100 something, 120 something, whatever it is, I want to be able to do the stuff I love doing then. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
So that's
why do you want to be old and not have quality of life?
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So eternal youth, I like it, Rachel. And I like that you straight off the bat have challenged my own belief system. It's brilliant.
Well, it's because the Bible's very clear. People can live almost 1,000 years. So it's our chosen idiocy to not have vision, to not have the wisdom, even though it's been around for ages. Generation by generation, we either fall backwards in wisdom and vision, or we push ourselves forward. So the fact that people have done it in the past, I've heard people right now somewhere in Asia are living up to 500 years at the moment, and they don't have to eat much at all. So that's a part of also living longer. Obviously doing a lot of exercise, but not really eating much at all. Yeah, it's interesting. Really cool.
Yeah, it's all fascinating. So if we come to like, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, I want to briefly go through this so we can actually get to the nuts and bolts of like the thinking stuff. But the way I look at the body is like a plant. If a plant was looking like this, you would naturally do certain things. Yeah, you'd start maybe thinking, maybe I need some more water, maybe you need some more nutritious food. Like if the leaves of your plant started going brown, you wouldn't think maybe I should paint them green. That would be weird, right? So this is where we're going, like, what's the root of this? Not what are the symptoms and how do we treat that? So with anyone that I've worked with and we've gotten great results, like all sorts of stuff from back pain to last week, one of our clients shared with me that her periods come back, like, and she's done nothing else really other than come and get her spine corrected. Again, like, your body is designed to be healthy. So if these things are not working properly, then we've just got to look at what's missing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I could pick, like, with every, whether it be high blood pressure to depression or anxiety or back pain, you can pretty much link all of the different requirements that you are probably not meeting in some way, whether it be a big, like you're not meeting it massively, or you're just not meeting it a little bit. Yeah, there's usually some link to all of them. So for me, the 4 main requirements to actually make sure that your DNA and your genes are actually firing the way they're supposed to is 1, get your spine corrected. Make sure that the brain is speaking correctly to the muscles and the organs. And everybody is a client, so I won't go through what our regular process is, but obviously I use objective testing to make sure, to actually assess, like, rather than basing it off pain, whether you're back pain or not back pain, like, let's objectively test your nervous system to see how it's functioning. Is it overfiring? Is it not? Are you leaning forward? Are you standing up nice and straight? And when people get improvements, like, you wouldn't necessarily expect someone who's, if you can see on the left, she's leaning quite far forward. And then on the right, you can see her, she's standing up much straighter. You wouldn't think, oh man, her kidneys are working much better. Yeah?
Sure.
So she was passing multiple kidney stones. Now she's not.
Postural positioning definitely plays a role.
Yeah. So, and when can you get chiropractic care? You can get chiropractic at any age. So I check Willow, I checked her since she was born, really. And I check people well into their 90s and 100s. It's probably about as, I haven't gone past that. Mm-hmm. But your nervous system is really important. So making sure that we look after is important. Same thing with eating. And I won't get into the eating by design is a whole nother workshop, but making sure that you're eating real food and you're eating a balanced diet of protein, fat, and vegetables. It's not rocket science. And the moving, like, if you don't move it and you don't use it, you lose it. So if you're not actively using your body in different ways, which is more than just walking, walking is great, but you only use about a quarter of what your body's actually able to do, then you will lose it. So 90% of the stimulation, like, to your nervous system comes from movement. So we've got to make sure we're moving. And then the final one is thinking. And this is where I really want to, like, dig in for the rest of tonight, is how you think essentially affects your actions, and your actions produce results, good and bad. So if we're not addressing how we think, and we're not doing that on a consistent basis, it's really easy for stuff to slip by. Even for myself, like, I've realized, I'm like, oh man, you've got to just keep doing this over and over again. So before we actually get into those steps, I just want to talk about how your nervous system and your brain actually work, because that makes a big difference in terms of understanding how you think, right? So the first thing is just to understand the general adaptation syndrome. Now, this is not just for the nervous system, but if you basically understand that, can everybody see my mouse pointer?
Yep.
Rachel, can you see my mouse pointer?
No, I'm just scrolling to the left. Oh, now I see it. Yeah, because it looks like you have maybe 3 different screens open, and I'm looking on my cell phone. Is that right?
Do I have 3 screens open?
No.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Gareth, if there's like a right at the top on the left hand side, there's a use slideshow. I don't know if that will change our view.
That's
Has that done anything?
Could you shoot?
There you
I
go.
got it.
Yeah.
I got it. Is that better?
Yeah, now there's one thing.
Now there's one thing, yeah, GAS.
Very good. Okay, that's brilliant. There's what I thought you were seeing, and there's what you were
Probably didn't
actually
want
seeing.
gas. That's what my wife tells me.
Well, no, gas is healthy. Gas is actually a healthy anyway, so here. So stress, stress is not bad. Yeah. Like if you actually break stress, if you start looking at stress itself, you can break stress up into stress and bad stress. Like going to the gym, yeah. Being busy is maybe not necessarily a good stress, but at the same time, like having a lot on it, like having challenges in your life, that's not necessarily bad.
No.
So like stress itself, if we break it up, there is good stress and there is bad stress, and sometimes a little bit of good stress can become bad stress. Do you guys get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So the way it works though is there's initially you'll have a dip, yeah, like your ability to react, and there's an alarm reaction that happens, and then what happens is your body mounts a response. So it's like, yep, I can fight this off. But if you stay in that for too long, eventually what happens is you crash. Yeah. And I mean, most people relate with the fact where they've been working, they go on holiday, and then they get sick, right? So this is where your system is actually depleted, and the minute you go on holiday, your body can actually go, oh sweet, I can chill out now, and you actually go through a bit of a detox reaction. Now again, I'm not saying stress is bad, but what's important to understand here is that if left for too long, it has a massive effect on your overall health and well-being. Now, separate from that, but linked, what am I doing? There we go, is the actual fight or flight versus the resting and repairing responses. So your autonomic nervous system is essentially the automatic part of your nervous system that controls your breathing, your digestion. Like right now, we're all sitting here and our heart's beating, and you don't have to do any, you don't have to think about that. You don't have to think, okay, make sure heart, keep beating, keep doing it. You know, you don't have to do that. So the automatic part of your nervous system is broken up into these two things: fight and flight, resting and repairing, and freezing as well. But for the purpose of this conversation, if there was a rabid dog in front of me and I was fearful for my life, the things on the left are normal responses: shoulder and neck tightness, because I want all my muscles tight. I want to be able to fight or run away. Increased sweating. Like I actually want my hands a little bit sticky. Like if I need to grab a branch and climb up something, having sticky hands is a good thing. Fight or flight posture. Again, like if I want to be in a position to defend myself, my heart rate increases, my breathing increases, my calves and my hamstrings get tight. Again, if I need to run away, I need to do that. My pupils dilate because I want more light. If we're at dusk and there's not very, or it's at nighttime and there's not very much light, I need to let as much light in as possible, so I know where the rabid dog is. And obviously your blood pressure increases as well because I won't
feed the muscles.
Yeah. So completely normal response. These are not bad things. We need these things. On the flip side, you got your digestion, your sleep, your healing, and your reproducing. So equally as useful. Now, in general, your nervous system can't do both of these things at the same time. Yeah. And I'm oversimplifying for the most part, but as a generalization, when your body is in fight or flight, it's really not interested in digesting food. The blood actually runs away from your digestive system because it's going to those big muscles. Yeah. The same with the sleep. Like, how important is sleep when someone's going to eat you? Yeah. In fact, if anything, you're going to try and stay awake because you don't want to get eaten. Healing is not really that important because, like, again, like, what's the point in your body using it? Yeah, well, like if you're gonna get eaten, like it's really not important to worry about that bruise on your elbow. And then reproduction, same thing. Blood goes away from the reproductive system because
Mhm.
reproducing is not important when the dog is going to eat me.
Mm.
Now, for a short period of time, this is amazing. Yeah, like this whole system. But when you start looking at our modern society and how we have designed our lives, like we are over busy and we often don't know how to deal with a lot of stresses like relationship stress, work stress, financial stress. Yeah.
It's good the lockdown was great, actually. I think I'm surprised more people aren't coming around at the moment because during their lockdown period, you saw people out with families and relaxing and,
Yeah.
you know, and not actually having to
Yeah.
do the fighting and flighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, it was probably a mix of both. I know some people it was really stressful, like it was freaking some people out for like they were either financially stressed or they were in houses with other people they didn't get on with.
Right.
So there were those people who it was not good. But I had plenty of clients who I've been like talking about this for ages, and
I
they're
thought
like,
it was a real blessing.
Everybody's like,
Yeah.
"Wow, it's
Yeah.
good."
yeah. So some people loved it, like, and it was great for some people, like definitely.
I
Yeah.
must say it was stressful, but I got closure. It's good.
Well, and again, this is good stress versus bad stress, right? Like, we touch on this, like conflict is not a bad thing, right? I used to think conflict is a bad thing. Now I'm like, oh, actually conflict's a good thing. It's actually good stress. We'll come to that. Anyway, my point here though, is if you're spending too much time in that fight or flight state, all those things, digestion, sleep, healing, reproducing, they go downhill, right? And here's the second to last thing I'm going to talk about before we actually get into the steps and start doing some work. So this is Perry's neurosequential model of, and this is just how your brain works, right? So when you're born, this is the order in which your brain kind of starts getting developed. Yeah, it starts with the brain stem. Yeah, this is your heart rate, your fight, your flight, your freeze. This is kind of what I was talking about before. That stuff that's automatically controlled. Then you get the midbrain. Yeah, and your coordination and your movement starts getting developed. And this is like, so even like lizards have these parts of their brain, right? Then the limbic system starts getting developed, and this is where you start getting your emotional responses. Now, children, like this is why because your children are developing, like their brain is developing, and this is why they will they'll lose their shit sometimes. Yeah, and you need to be the brake for them. Yeah, because they can't stop themselves from responding emotionally to the fact that you said, here's a cracker, and they're like, that's two halves of a cracker. And you're like, but it's the same thing. And they're like, you don't love me. Like, and you're like, and they have a complete meltdown, right? Because they don't have this final piece here, which gets developed as you're getting older, like especially like 8, 9, 10. Yeah, this is when this part of the brain really starts getting developed, and this is like empathy, controlling yourself, literacy. Now, a dog doesn't have this cortical part. Yeah. Now I know that he doesn't have it because if I ask him to read the newspaper, he can't do that. So if I'm ever in doubt of which part of the brain is doing something, you can just ask, can my dog do this? If the dog cannot do that, then that's not part of the brain, right? But they have the first three, right? They have emotion, they have experienced fear, they experience joy. Now, the more stressed out you get, and it doesn't have to be mental emotional stress, this can be nutritional, right? This can be joint. This can be, the more stresses you have in your body, the more these centers in your brain start shutting down. Yeah. And it's like, I think of it like a seesaw. Like essentially, like everything goes out of balance, and then people just live in this like fight, flight, freeze. And you've met them and probably not even realized that they're like they're just on edge, and they can't think past today. Like sometimes they can't even think past this hour, right? And we've all even been there sometimes because we've all experienced stress, right? Yeah, I've definitely been there. I can share some stories. Any questions?
Well, to do with this model, I definitely relate to absolutely all of it. Like, I don't know why, But even though, as you've pointed out, with me being your client as a chiropractor, I'm still battling this long road of recovery from the fight or flight, and my systems are slow, and yet I have huge amount at the very top of empathy. In
Yeah.
fact, it seems too much, because I always want to help others and forget about myself. So how does that work in this?
Well, it's not quite, yeah. So I'm oversimplifying, Rachel. It's not quite as cut and dry, like you get into
Okay.
the fight, flight, freeze, and then you can't be empathetic. So, and there might be an element of like, you can't think clearly enough to
Yes.
like create a boundary.
Like I actually realized
See
today
what I mean?
with the test that a guy did today with the kids.
Yeah.
He put a hat on my head and hat on his head, and he says, "Okay, I'm going to focus," and then he's going to try and grab the hat off my head, and then I must try and stop it.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
lights on, but nobody's home. But he'll grab the hat off my head. So that's where I am at that stage. So I'm so unfocused.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, lights on, but nobody's on.
Yeah.
He'll just grab the hat off my head without me not even responding.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of those signs that shows that you're totally out of focus.
Yeah. Yeah. But does that make sense, Rachel? And we're going to talk about.
I wasn't quite able to hear her, and I heard you simply say it's not cut and dry.
Yeah, so it's not cut and dry. It's not as like it's not like you can't be empathetic just because your nervous system's super stressed out. Yeah, and you also want to get that. You probably like we're talking about gradients here as well.
I think Rachel was actually saying the opposite. She was saying that the fight and flight stuff is being the first thing that's affected, but she's still very empathetic, even to the point of being self-sacrificing.
Yes.
I think that's the point. Is that the point you were making, Rachel? Sorry?
Well, yeah, and I guess a part of it is when you're trained as a parent, especially on your own, a part of the fight or flight as a parent is you must look after your children no matter what lack of sleep, how much they hit you or scream or cry or whatever. It's laying your life down. It is survival mode. Shush, Asher. That's my eldest out of 4. But it's still survival mode, and yet there is high empathy because I have to. The radar. You have to have the eyes in the back of your head. You have to be on guard 24/7, whether they're sleeping or awake. You're checking on them. Blah blah blah.
Yeah. So yeah, totally. Yeah. So I think so. Here's what I'm pointing to, Rachel, is you might be very empathetic. What I'm pointing to is some other decisions. There's probably things that you could do that you can't even see, actions you can take that you can't see because you're in that state.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
It's like the I might butcher this analogy a little bit, but like it's a little bit like you're like drowning and there's something you can grab onto, but you're so busy. You're so busy worried about the drowning that you don't see the floating piece of debris behind you, or you're so busy focusing on something else. Do you know what I'm saying? Like your ability to see things is like your focus. I don't know if you can see me, but your focus narrows. That's what happens when you get stressed, right? Your focus narrows in on the stuff that you need to do for survival. So looking after your kids, like doing all that kind of stuff, your focus narrows on those things and you can't see the wider picture sometimes.
I find that I'm definitely as a part of survival aware of how important learning is. So for instance, that's why I'm here right now, because I'm a gatherer of resources. That's a part of my fight or flight. I must learn ASAP forever. But what I notice is, even though, like for example, you taught me months ago to do that breathing method of hop, whatever it is.
Wim Hof, yeah.
Wim Hof, and yet even though you tell me almost every second time I was there, and it seems like a great strategy, it wasn't until just like last week someone told me about the app. It might have been Justine. I finally I thought, okay, enough's enough. I keep hearing the wisdom, I'm not applying it. And I put the app on my phone right away, and then immediately I could see, I absolutely need to breathe better, and that will help my kids, et cetera, et cetera. It's you can see the information, you want the information, but to actually follow through and make the changes and the new habits, that's a part of the kind of frustration I have with my own body, my own system. I'm gathering knowledge, but what's the point if I'm not able to apply it because I'm still in fight or flight survival mode? Does that make sense?
Totally
Totally
makes sense,
sense.
Rachel. And that's
Yeah.
why there's the stuff that we're going to go through shortly, which is that you got to like take one step at a time and build up some new habits of taking more action and a little bit less knowledge gathering, which is So let's carry on, and we may come back to that because, it's quite a good example. Why can't I click on this thing? There we go. And so this is why I'm really, again, why I think the Think About Design workshop is actually more important than everything else. Because if you have a thought, you're going to produce a choice. You're going to make a choice, right? Which is then going to produce action behaviors. That's then going to give you an experience, and then you're going to get a feeling. That then drives the same thought, which then produces same choices, same actions and behaviors, same experiences, same feelings. Now, this works both. Again, this is not like a good or a bad thing. This is kind of neutral.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had the thought, like, to achieve my goals, I need to start getting more sleep. Yeah, going to bed earlier. That's produced. So the choice then is I go to bed earlier, even when I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
The same action and behavior has then produced the same experience. I've got more energy, and it's then caused me to start going. I'm training more. In fact, I'm training more. I'm eating healthier just by like changing this one thing, which is making me feel really good. And then it's going, I should do that again.
Okay, yeah.
Even when I'm having a bad week. So this last week, I've been having a bad week in terms of that. I've been like, oh man, it would just be nice to stay up and watch another episode of blah, blah, blah on Netflix. Yeah. Or like carry on working. Because this is my, like, if I'm going to stay up late, the two things I love doing is working or watching Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and it can go the other way around, right? So let's say you have the thought of I'm a loser. Yeah. You're going to make a choice. Like, I should have some chocolate. Yeah. That'll make me feel good. You get an experience of feeling good when you eat chocolate. Who doesn't?
Absolutely.
And that circuit just keeps driving you around and around and around to the point where you become so habitual, because there's a part of your brain, like, its only job is to form habits, because nerves that wire together, eventually you don't even know why you're doing it.
You're making chocolate sound like a bad thing.
Sometimes it is.
Oh.
Dark chocolate. Now that's where the money's at. Anyway.
Yeah.
Amen.
Okay.
They had a thing in the lightning process, and they say that the brain's a pattern finding machine.
Yeah.
And they keep repeating that the brain is a pattern finding machine. And then by the end of the thing, they were talking about the fact that the brain is a patented fighting machine. And of course,
because the brain doesn't like change.
But the last thing I actually said was
it's a patterned
fighting machine is what I said at the last one, and no one picks it up, because by the time you say it, even I only did it twice in, but they'd been saying it for half a day, and then he could keep saying something because we were expecting to hear, because the brain finds a pattern.
Exactly.
And the first pattern we heard was a pattern finding machine, and then afterwards he kept referring to it as a patent fighting machine.
Yeah.
And nobody picked it up.
Yeah.
And you didn't just then.
Yeah.
And only done it twice. So it just shows you how
That's
quickly
amazing.
the brain does pick up a pattern. Really quite remarkable.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why you're going to see in the last step that we're going to talk about is actually taking the time to work through this stuff again and again and again and again, because it's so fast. Like, you make decisions and you add meaning, and it becomes the truth. And it's so fast and it's so subtle that you don't even know that it's happening. Yeah. Both ways, good and bad. There's no So the first thing that we always want to start with when we're looking at thinking about design is a vision. Like, what is your vision for yourself and your life? Now, we're actually going to grab, we have this one. So I emailed this to everyone, hopefully, or just ended at least. And there's actually a worksheet that we're going to work through. For what do you want? You need to start here. And the reason why, the reason why we start here is, has everybody done a puzzle before? Yeah?
Yep.
After you've, and I'm going to skip this because everyone says the same thing. After I've put all the pieces face up, and I've even got all the corners and I've got all the sides, what is the thing that you do to start putting the puzzle together? What's one of the first things you do?
You look at the picture.
Yeah, you look at the picture, right?
Yeah.
Because you like, the picture is your reference.
Mhm.
Now, most of us don't do that in life. We don't actually stop and go, how do I want this to look? Often what we do is we look at how we talk and we think about how we don't want it to look. I don't want to be this busy. I don't want to have this many arguments. I don't want to have this bad health. And inevitably, all you end up doing is heading towards what you focus on.
Just driving into the tree.
Yeah,
Don't want to hit the tree, don't want to hit the tree.
exactly.
Sounds like me.
Yeah, if you don't want to crash into the tree when you're spinning out in the car, don't look at the tree.
Look
So
where you want to go. You know.
yeah, exactly. Look where you want to go. So now I'm going to send you probably in the next couple of days when I teach Justine how to do it. I'm going to send you a manual, and I'm going to send you a spreadsheet, and all the different areas of your life, and essentially you can work through these exercises on all these things. But for tonight, I want you to pick one area of life, whether it be health and well-being. It might be your relationships. It might be your career. It might be your finances. I mean, pick an area of life and jot down some things that you want in that area. I want you to do that now.
Can we do a stomp this?
Just pick one area, whether it be health and well-being, like career. It might even be like experiences. I'm trying to think what the tabs are. They're just gone from my brain. But like,
What's the time frame, Gareth, of working on a particular thing? Because that'll help us to know which to choose.
we're literally going to do this for a few minutes.
So this is just the.
Yeah, I don't want you to think. Here's the thing. I don't want you to think too hard about this right now. You guys can take.
Just one thing, or do you want several?
So I've given you 5 points. So pick in that area of life that you picked. Yeah. Whether it be, yeah. So if you've picked health, for example, you're going to probably put down 4 or 5 things. Like you want to have more energy. You want to be able, I want to be able to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu until I'm 90. It might be that you want more flexibility in an area. It might be that you want to be fitter, yeah, or you want to be able to lose 10 kilos or 5 kilos. So jot down 4 or 5 things in the area that you've picked. Now obviously, I mean, this is irrelevant for anybody that's online, but you guys are going to take this home with you. It's not for me to, I'm not taking it.
You're not going to mark it.
Failed.
Loser.
Need a better vision. Better goals. No. Oh, I forgot about the slide. What else have I got? There's just put a couple of examples up there, like some questions to spark if you're struggling. You see, I haven't done this for like 6 months now. Like, I've already forgotten about a couple of the slides. Right. Does anybody need more time?
Good.
So you can even like you can actually even stick some of these things up on like a vision board. Yeah. Like one of my favorite things to do is to do this in a number of different places. Like put it up on a vision board. Like I was reading something the other day. It was talking about that people who wrote down their goals were like 50% more likely to achieve them. So I was like, wow, that's quite, and that's easy. Like, especially if you create it in a format that you only have to take 2 or 3 minutes to do it every now and again. And that is the homework. So again, I'm going to send you that spreadsheet, but there's a whole bunch of different areas that you can pick. Everything from your inner state, your relationship, your health, your career, your finances, your home. Actually, let's. Oh no, we'll cover. I'll get someone to share in a minute. But let's go through another section or two, and then we'll come back to it. So the next thing is why. Like, why do you want these things? Now, really important to get a decent why, because at some point it gets hard. Like that's just life. Like it's very easy to create a goal. Like, and this is where like New Year's resolutions, right? Like New Year's resolutions, they are so like more often than not, people do not follow through with their New Year's resolutions because they create this goal, which is really and often sounds like a great goal. But it's not even about not being reachable. They often don't have a deep enough why.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Like if I said to you, you need to do 100 push-ups, or I'm going to take away, or I'm going to put you in prison, right? Mm-hmm. You'd probably find a way to do 100 push-ups.
Okay, yeah.
It might take you, you might not get them done in like 5 minutes, right? But you'd find a way because your why.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's
yeah.
True.
And okay. like it does get hard. Like me, like going to bed earlier and going to CrossFit at 5:45 in the morning. Like I'm not a morning person. Like it takes me a good 30, 60 minutes to like kind of like get going again and start getting chatty. I usually I don't like the people at CrossFit probably think I'm not very chatty. I love talking, but at that time in the morning, I'm just there just doing it. Yeah. So anyway, my point is that at some point I know that it's going to get hard, and if I'm not clear on why and it's not big enough, then I'm going to struggle. Now, we're going to talk about values in a second. So one of the things I'm going to suggest you do now is put down so pick one of those goals. So you've written 3 or 4 or 5, pick one of them, write it down on that blank, in that blank area, put next to why do I want blah, blah, blah. And then jot down some reasons. Why do you want that thing? Now, I suggest that you connect it to stuff that's important to you. Like I said, we're going to talk about values in a second, but like if your kids are the most important thing to you, then you want to put that stuff down. Like putting down, I want to lose 10 kilos so that I look good is a complete waste of time if you don't care about looking good. Well, not really. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a nice idea, but if you're like, man, I want to lose 10 kilos so I'm a role model for my kids because your kids are actually important to you, then you should use that. Now, I also don't suggest that you judge your reasons either. Like there's nothing wrong with it, like making more money just because you want to be wealthy. Like if that was, like some people find money really valuable. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no like morality around it. Like there's a reason why some people in the world are really wealthy. It's because they like money.
Comes a focus.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. And the ones who keep it and stay for longer usually have other things as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so jot down, once you've picked one of those things, jot down 4 or 5 reasons why you actually want that. sometimes it's even, and it may even sound silly, like because I've used the example of kids because it's easy and it kind of makes sense. But sometimes your why is because you don't want to be known as a quitter. Like there have been times when I've finished something because I'm like, I don't quit. So yeah, and that's why I say don't judge it either. Like it doesn't
Unless
have
you're
to
an
be.
identity.
Yeah,
So identity is, I think, a strong one for most people.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And I know people who it's like they're like, I really want to like not quit just because I can finish something, and that's just not enough. They just
Yeah.
Now, when you do this by yourself, and you have a lot more time, like let's say you carve out an hour or two to work on a particular area, my suggestion is to almost try and write down 50 reasons why. The more reasons you put down, and it gets harder. Like the first 10, 20 are pretty easy. But when you have it's like you like, and new things pop up for you. Like, yeah, so things will pop up for you and show up for you as well. It's like, oh man, I didn't realize that was important to me.
Yeah.
And if you can't find a decent number of reasons why, some solid reasons, then you want to consider that maybe you don't want the thing that you really say you want. I've had to confront that before. I really wanted to be a sports chiropractor who worked for the All Blacks. And one of the hardest things I had to confront, and it took me, my wife could see it for probably 6 to 12 months before I saw it, but I didn't want that. I did not want it. I like the idea of it. I like the idea of looking good and being able to tell people. But the reality of what it was going to take for me to do that, like, family is more important to me. Being an All Black chiropractor is not like really conducive for those things unless I was willing to not spend time with my family. This is where you have to start dealing with some hard truth. You don't actually, that you like things the way they are. Sometimes we do.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like everything in your life, the way it is right now, is based off choices and things that you.
I have made some massive choices in the last year.
Yeah, you've made some hard choices, right?
Yeah, very big, massive, scary ones.
Yeah, and it's been hard, and you're heading in a direction that you want to go, because otherwise you're just going to keep going the way you were going, right? Yeah. Right. So everyone should have a couple of whys now. Oh, I can't remember this thing happened again. There we go. And here's the third thing. So, and this is where it starts getting real fun. Is and this kind, I suppose, kind of what I was saying before is interluding into this is developing a conscious philosophy. So becoming conscious of what you really want, what you really value, and what you really believe. And this one here for me is like next to the vision and like what's most important, like what you want to achieve is like the most important thing. So here's a couple of examples before I get you to do some beliefs. So I want someone to finish the sentence for me. A lack of symptoms means where?
Comfortable.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
What else?
Pleasant.
Pleasant.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, a lack of symptoms could also mean that your body could be healthy because you're not so showing symptoms.
Yeah.
So it could be both ways. Yeah.
What's what most people believe?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Consciously or unconsciously, if I don't have symptoms, like, and my favorite one, people come in here because often most people come and see me for back pain, like especially if it's like a Google or they came through the sign, they haven't been referred here. Because some, like, once people understand, they get referred for all sorts of stuff. Most people come in and I'm like, how are you? I'm like, and they're like, well, I'm great, except I've got this back pain, and I was fine before that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, right. And then I take an X-ray of their back, and I'm like, Right. So this has been there for 30 years.
Yep.
But they've had no pain, or they have had bouts of pain. Let's say I've had a sore back a couple of times over my life, and yeah, like the back's been actually not been well for a long time. Same thing with heart attack. Yeah, like 50% of heart attacks, the first sign of heart disease was the event.
That's right.
And then people like there were no signs. But there were probably heaps of signs, they just didn't see it.
Or didn't want to see it.
And yeah, usually didn't want to see it, right? So if we just look at what, if we shift that belief there, so a lack of symptoms may mean we're healthy. If you look at what a nerve is made up of, only 6 to 13% is sensory. So this is pain, temperature, touch, vibration, whereas the rest of it is motor and autonomic. So controlling your muscles and controlling blood vessels, glands, and organs. Now, if you walked around with that belief, you're going to make certain choices. Most of them are going to be unconscious. Versus if you kind of get that, it may mean we're healthy. It might mean that you go and get a checkup with your doctor. Yeah. It might mean that you're like, maybe that I just go and get an assessment to make sure everything's okay. Yes.
No, just the traditional medicine is often about if there's no symptoms, then you're fine as well.
Yeah.
It's not just the individual; it's something that it's a societal belief.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think also a lot of doctors, what I found with me, they just always treat the problem and not the actual cause.
Yeah, that's right. They treat the symptom.
Yeah.
The problem.
Yeah.
It's like, it's simple. It's what you can next week.
And that's not all doctors, right? We're stereotyping, but yes, as you're right, it's a societal thing.
Yeah, it is.
Because, and it's not, and what I've
But we
thought,
expect that. We expect the doctor to give us a pill. We walk in there and the doctor said, eat less, change your lifestyle. We'd say, where's my tablet?
yeah,
Yeah, just get it.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's true what
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, because,
Yeah.
and that's so the belief is health comes from a pill. Yeah, health. If I don't have a symptom,
Don't have a symptom.
yeah.
Yeah, then everything's fine.
So consistent with that, if I don't have the symptom anymore, then taking the pill must be healthy.
Mm.
The problem with that though is if I gave you a healthy person the same pill, is that going to make you healthier, sicker?
Well, I think that for me, when I was a student, we learned that pharmaceuticals, when they do pharmaceutical tests, one of the most efficient, the highest efficiency one is paracetamol.
Yes.
And on double-blind studies, paracetamol was 43% effective, which is pretty high. The placebo was 40% effective.
Right.
So in actual fact, a drug that we all think is just magic is only 3% more effective than just thinking you're going to be okay.
Exactly.
It's amazing, right?
It's phenomenal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, my dad always, because my dad was a doctor, when he prescribed medicine to his patients,
Yep.
and he would give them, then he would ask the pharmacist to please take out the notes that tell you all the symptoms, because he would find that a lot of those patients would come back with so many of those symptoms,
Yeah.
because they'd read
They'd read it.
Yeah. And one of the other things I've realized is often when the doctor says what he's saying is, I have nothing more to do here
Yeah.
because my job is disease.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
It's
it's,
health.
yeah. So I'm great. I love it when the doctor's like, sweet, like, you're fine. Because I'm like, great, I'll go and see my chiro or my other people, my naturopath or whatever. Anyway, so I'm going to send you guys, with that email, I'm going to send you guys some different books that I recommend that you read. Yeah. I mean, I listen to all my books on Audible, but like read them, listen to them, whatever, like challenge some of these beliefs, especially we're talking about health right now. Because there's a lot of stuff that when you become aware of a belief, that's the most important thing. The minute you become aware of it, you're able to shift it. And at least if you've assessed it, you're like, okay, no, that belief is actually serving me. It is actually helping me. Then you can continue along with it.
Mm.
So here's another one. My genes control what do my genes control?
How my body functions,
Yeah.
or how everything works in it.
Yeah, yeah. My genes control my body functions, my health, and these two people are twins. So they've got the same genes, and one is much bigger than the other. So it's not that your genes. I have a slide for this. So it's not that your genes. So yes, your genes affect everything.
I was going to say, they do actually.
Well, they do.
But yeah.
But they are. So the new science of genetics is starting to show that your genes are triggered. Yeah. So if you, just because I have the gene for heart disease, because my father has heart disease, doesn't mean I'm going to get heart disease.
I don't know. I've seen another one with two case study I looked at with two twins like this, and they were twins, and they were genetically identical twins. And one was a lazy slob, and the other was a total fitness fanatic.
Oh,
And the lazy slob had a heart attack. Rang his brother and said, "You need to get tested." And he said, "I don't need to get tested. I'm fit. I have a good diet. I look after myself," which is quite true. But the best thing you can do for your health is have good genes. And they didn't. They had heart disease was part of the genetic background. And up until then, I think the father had lived into his early 60s and the grandfather the same. And so he went and got tested and got stress tested and had 3 stents put in within 2 days.
Wow.
And that was the healthy guy. And that's just because of the genetics. But I agree you can enhance, you can do things to make things worse considerably, but I don't know that you can change.
I think mindset also.
So there's other
plays
things
a
that
very
play.
big
So there's other things that play and factors into these things, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm pointing to here is that I'm not saying that your genes don't play a factor. Like having good genes is pretty freaking important. Yeah.
Best thing you can do for your health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Genetically,
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's an element of like you can't do much about the genes you've been given, right?
Correct.
But you can make better choices that are more likely
Absolutely.
to head you in the right
Yeah, no, I
direction.
agree with that 100%.
So and that's what I'm pointing to here. So I'm definitely not saying don't believe your genes don't play a factor.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Definitely not saying that. What I'm saying is it can't, like, because the thing is it's really easy for it to become an excuse.
Yes.
Yeah, I just have bad genes. And I'm like, that's not going to give you, it gives you no power.
I have one sister that looks like that and another one that looks like that.
Yeah.
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 And like I've seen so many people. In fact, I had this client come in the other day. I've known him for maybe 2 or 3 years, and I've only ever known him as this massive dude. And then he turned up the other day, and I was like, "What happened to you?" And he's like, "I just decided to cut out all the sugar and the starch." And he's lost 20 to 25 kilos
It's fabulous.
Wow.
in the last 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So, again, my purpose of showing you this is not to say. In fact, I'm not even telling you to believe what I believe, right? Just because I believe something doesn't mean you should believe it. What I'm suggesting is that you take the time to really assess, like, is this belief true? I mean, because I could tell you that we can fly, and I could really believe that. I could genuinely believe that we can fly without an airplane. We could just jump off a roof. But I promise you that gravity will come up with a whole nother answer, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Well, so anyway, so here's the thing. And this is from. So there's one of the books I'm going to recommend is there's this guy named Joe Dispenza. He does some really cool work, and he talks about how your thoughts affect everything. You have a thought which activates a neural network, which activates neuropeptides and hormones, which then causes an epigenetic signal to cells, which activates cell receptor sites, which then causes DNA selection and regulation.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have an expression of proteins, an expression of life, and your health of the body. So his students are reversing, like one of the studies in the book, he talks about this guy with brain traumatic injury, goes and does this and Joe Dispenza's work is based a lot around meditation. And he does these particular meditation things. And by the end of the 5-day thing, he can write his own name, even though he couldn't do that before. Yeah, so he's written a whole bunch of books. You Are the Placebo, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, a bunch of different ones. I I quite like the either placebo one because they had all these examples of placebos, right? Like what you were saying before, like would they take Parkinson's patients, they stick them with saline solution, they tell them that it's dopamine, and their Parkinson's symptoms, their tremor disappears.
Right.
And you're like, huh, like how cool is that?
Very cool.
And when you can harness that, you can actually literally change the body by thought alone. And that's what a lot of his students are
but
doing.
it's like that example that I think it was you that told me, where they put you under, like you have an operation. They can like bend your body like in half if they want to. But the moment you're awake again, your brain goes, no, I can't, I'm not supple. No, you can't. No,
Yeah.
you can't. And then you can't.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm trying to tell my girls are dancing also, that you need to tell your body that you can.
Yeah. And even if they can't right now, that this
eventually
belief
it
will
will,
allow them
yes.
to continue doing the stretches that they need to do to get, right?
Another wonderful study I read about was a TMB, a Take Me Back one, where they do, which is the same type of thing using thought.
Yes.
And they got a group of geriatrics, and they tested them all. I think it was 25 of them or something, and they tested them all with cognitive function, range of motion, physical ability, the whole lot. And then they sent them off to a hotel, a 1950s hotel, and they all went to the 1950s bar. They weren't allowed any assistance. They listened to 1950s music. They read 1950s papers. There was no television.
They had like baseball posters up and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was totally back in 1950s. So there's nothing at all that would have stopped them thinking. Then they retested them all before they left, and this is 4 weeks, just 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And the improvement was like, it was a minimum of 25% improvement on just about all the score points. It was phenomenal.
Pretty cool, eh?
Yeah, really cool. And that was just because the body remembered what it was like to feel young and what it felt like to move and what it felt like to, because everything there reminded them of a time of their life where they were physically able and mentally sharp. And so it brought them back to that place, and their body adjusted, their brain adjusted their body accordingly. That's the neuroplasticity stuff.
Yeah.
And just phenomenal.
And how much does it work in the reverse? Like you tell yourself you're old.
Yeah.
I should be getting old.
Yeah.
And so you naturally start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do I want to do that right now? No, we're going to come back to that.
What are my values?
Yeah. So I mean, these are some more examples. Like medication. Does it actually make you healthy? What do we believe makes us sick? Like bad luck, bad germs, bad genes. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of beliefs we have around money, relationships. Like I was saying before, like I used to think that conflict was bad. I really thought conflict was bad. Like arguments were a bad thing. And now, like, actually, to have a healthy relationship, you need to have arguments. You need to, like, have conflict. You need to, like, not necessarily fighting all the time, but you need to have small, healthy conflicts so that you don't end up with monsters later down the track.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't take the time to address these beliefs,
it's communication.
Yeah, you just walk around thinking it's their fault.
Mm-hmm.
So, assess beliefs in the area you want the breakthrough the most. So, and that's one of the things I'm going to suggest is, because it'd be nice to like take a whole week or like a whole weekend and work through every single one of these areas. But one of the things I'm going to suggest you do is pick one area and go to town on that one. Take a couple of hours away from the kids, away from distractions, preferably in a place that's even inspiring. Yeah? Go to your favorite coffee shop, go to somewhere and actually work on some of the stuff, especially if it's an area where you're struggling. The fourth thing is building self-esteem and defining your values. So I'm not going to go deep into self-esteem right now. It's a massive topic. This guy named Nathaniel Branden wrote a book called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. It's an awesome book. He talks about the 6 pillars, which is living consciously, self-acceptance, self-responsibility, self-assertiveness, purposeful living, and personal integrity. And there's some exercises that are online. Do I send those to you? I might send those to you anyway, which basically are sentence stem. This is about becoming more conscious. So basically you finish the sentence. Like if I was integrous, I would. And you have to write down as fast as you can what pops into your mind. and you start becoming conscious of the things that are unconscious for you. Anyway, so read his book. It's awesome. And saying that, it's also a little bit boring because the guy is not the most like lively writer, but I did have to wade through it a little bit. But it is really cool stuff, and I do highly recommend it. This is another book that I thought I would never read because I was like, how on earth could a book with that title be good? And then my wife read it and she told me I need to read it. And then I read it and I was like, this book's amazing. To the point where I reread it, I think at the start of the year. And I realized because I think I just need to reread it every now and again. And one of the most favorite things that I like about this guy's book and what he talks about is values, and really taking the time to assess what is most important to you. And he even gives you like a basic structure on what values to avoid. So things like always being right. I was the king of always being right. I could never understand why relationships wouldn't work out. Or I wasn't achieving some of the things I wanted to achieve. But then it was really hard for anybody to like be in a relationship with me or contribute to me because, well, I always knew better. Pleasure's another one. Not that you can't ever be right, not that you can't ever like enjoy like pleasurable things, but like if your highest values are these things, material success, staying positive and not experiencing negative emotions is not healthy. Like that's pretending like things are okay when they're not.
Totally agree.
Whereas values to cultivate, so like basic structure, like are they reality based? Are they socially constructive? Are they immediate and controllable? And one of the examples that he uses that I quite like, that's not working, is honesty. So honesty is in reality, you're either being honest or you're not. Yeah. Now, an example of this is like, so Vicky comes out and she says to me, do you like what I'm wearing? Now,
It's loaded.
it is. But if I tell her, if I don't say what I like, if I'm not honest, like that at some point can bite me in the butt, and that'll be a way bigger problem than if I'm like, I don't like that. And again, because it's socially constructive, right? Because if I don't like it, and one of the things that reasons why she's wearing it is because she wants to look good for me, then that's not, then at some point, yeah, it's not ideal. And is it immediate and controllable? Like, I can immediately and control whether I'm being honest or not. And if I'm not, I can correct that. Like when she asked me if I enjoyed the eggs that she boiled for me, and I said yes. And about 30 seconds later, I burst out laughing. And she said to me, why are you laughing? And I was like, because I never ate the eggs. I gave them away. But in that moment, I had a moment of weakness where I was like, if I tell her that I gave them away, she's going to get upset with me because she took the time to make me the eggs, right? Yeah. All the time that she was going to England with Willow for the first time, and I kept having this thought that was like, is she not going to come back? Like, is she never going to come back? Now, I know I've learned not to listen to my thoughts. Our thoughts are random. Some of them are just random. You have a random thought, don't read too much into it. But when you keep having the same thought, one of my mentors was like, dude, you need to go and talk to her about that. And I was crapping myself. I was like, is she going to get upset with me? What if it is true? And anyway, I finally picked up the courage to go and talk to her about the fact I kept having this thought, like, I'm worried you're not going to come back with Willow. And she just burst out laughing. She's like, that's ridiculous, Gareth. What are you talking about? And immediately it removed, like, I just relaxed. I stopped having the thought because I started bringing some reality to my crazy ass thought.
It's confronting your fears, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, my point here is, what are your values? What is most important to you? And get clear on them. Because, and we call it the doorman principle. When you're clear on what your values are, you make better choices. Yeah. Like, if family is most important to me, then if the All Blacks call me and they're like, hey, Gareth, we want to give you a job, I'm not going to jump at it. I'm not just going to say yes, because that's probably going to conflict with one of my other much more important values. Or if there's someone in your life that, let's say, has destructive tendencies, and you have high values on, or actually, yeah, let's say you want to be healthy, and you hang out with someone who doesn't want to be healthy. They want to drink lots of alcohol, they want to eat lots of cake, and they want to sit on the couch. Like, that does not make them a bad person. But if your goal is to be you have a high value in health, and you want to have a goal, then hanging out with that person is probably not the best idea. Like, limiting your time with them is probably a better idea. And hanging out with someone else who loves training to the point where it might even drive you crazy. Yeah. I mean, my wife wanted to be healthy. It wasn't why we got together, but like, one of the things that she decided before I met her was, I want to get healthier. And then she met me, and then I'm like a health freak. And that almost drove her crazy in some ways. Yeah. But my point here is, when you're clear on your values, you can learn to say no, because you actually need to say no more often than you need to say yes to get where you want to go and to have what you want to have.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And so the thing is, you want to identify your values. That's the homework, really. Now, the one question that I do want to talk about before we go into, so these are my values. So these are, like, for me, helping people, Vicky will have family time, self-improvement, honesty, integrity, acts of service. Those are the things I value the most. And I'm willing to sacrifice other things for. Whereas Vicky, and it's good to get your partner's values too, like freedom, family time, travel, and me time. Like, when Vicky wasn't getting travel and me time, life was just not fun for anyone, right? So knowing what your significant others and your family's values is kind of helps quite a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. So before I go into the last thing, I just want to talk about. Actually, no.
Especially with your values are those ones, there and there.
Yeah.
If you don't know the others, you're just not in a position to help.
Yeah.
You're not in a position to do the acts of service.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's often a slow and painful process to figure some of this stuff out, like, because you'll do the exercise, and then you'll get out in the court. You go live your life, and then you discover, you're like, hang on, something's a little bit off, and you have to refine. And sometimes you have to take something completely out and add something else in. And then sometimes the order of the values changes. Like, what's most important will change.
And the other one, I think, there's always that high area is forgiveness, especially in relationships, because you're never going to get it right all the time, and nor is your partner. And so your forgiveness needs to be, for me, quite high up in there.
Exactly.
Forgiveness of self, but also very much of others.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. There's actually
Someone said the other day, which was such a cute word, they said at church, we're all mounted.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. All right, so actually, I'm going to go through this, and then I'll go through the last couple of actions for you to write down. Oh, actually, so I do want you to write down. Right, so I do want you, based off your what you've been doing so far, skip the third question. Oh, you've got two different things here. That's fascinating. Fascinating. Where did the second one come from? I must have done this before and done slightly different things. So I just want you to jot down, like, what your values are, like, around, like, and how do they link in with the thing that you want? Like, again, I don't want you to take a heap of time, but, like, if you think about some of your high values, how do those things link in?
I can pinpoint a lot of the stuff that you said.
Yeah. And how does that link in with what you want to get? This is a little bit more the deeper part of the life, right?
I struggle with these ones.
Right. You're right there, Jenny.
Yes, mine is big general ones.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Over time it might refine, over time it might not. It doesn't have to be a certain way, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to have the perfect values. And this is why I say again, don't judge what you value. And at some point you've got to deal with reality. Like if your highest value was pleasure, and let's say your goal was to like buy a house, but you keep spending all your money on pleasurable things and you don't have any money for a house, at some point you've got to deal with with reality, because reality exists that maybe that value isn't serving you. Maybe, or that you don't actually want a house. So stop giving yourself a hard time about it.
Totally.
Sounds like me with a losing weight.
So the second to last thing to talk about is crafting your detailed plan. So I actually recommend you so at the start of the year, do an annual plan. Use 90-day objectives, a little bit like you would in business. Do weekly planning, do daily planning. One of the books I'm reading about now talks about the one thing. What's the one thing I need to do today, such that it would either make everything else easier or unnecessary? What's the one thing I need to do this week? What's the one thing I need to do over the next 90 days? What's the one thing that I need to do this year that's going to help me get where I want to go? And so you actually need to put this in your calendar though, and use lists. I used to use OneLister. Now I use something called Microsoft To Do. There's another one called Things.
Oh, the to-do one is nice.
Yeah, you don't have to use these, but I find it's just easier to capture them and then go, oh, sheepers, I forgot about that. And then even more important than anything else, like forgetting about the lists, is actually just taking time to book stuff in. Like if you do not put, like whether you use a manual diary, I use iCal, or if you use Google or whatever you use, if you do not book the stuff in, it's unlikely to happen, especially if it's an area that you're challenged by. You probably don't have to plan. Like I don't have to plan Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It is just planned. Like it is in my book, in my appointment book, but like
it's a priority for you.
It's a priority. Like I move things around Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah, I will move stuff around it. Like the class moves to 11:45, then it moves to 11:30, then it moves back to 12, and I'm like, I change my schedule around Jiu-Jitsu, right? So I don't really have to work that hard at it, right, at least going. But like, going to bed early, man, that's taken something from me. Right? I've had to do some serious planning, and I've failed. So here's the other thing: you got to expect to fail.
Put an alarm on your phone. Ding ding ding. Oh, sleep time now. Go.
You joke. The sleep guru, the book I read, the guy, was one of his pieces of advice was to put an alarm to go to sleep.
And don't be watching Netflix before you go to bed. Is the big one.
Yeah, that's the same with me.
There is that too. Where was I going with that? You expect to fail, right? Like I stopped working at 9:30. Really proud of myself. Like I was not finished. This is last week. Stopped at 9:30. I'll do the rest of the stuff tomorrow. Mistake I made was I didn't book that stuff in that I hadn't finished.
Yeah.
And then I forgot about it. And then when the appointment came that I was supposed to talk about the thing that I hadn't quite finished, I was unorganized and stressed out. So expect to fail, but if you don't book the stuff in, and you're way more likely to fail anyway.
Because I find I've got permanent lists everywhere. Keep writing stuff on lists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep checking everything.
And like you got to every week, like you take half an hour every week to go and look, what does my next week look like? Did I get everything done I wanted this week? What do I need to reschedule? If you don't take the time to book the stuff out, you're just unlikely to. You're going to get more of the same, more of haphazard results. So here's the last thing I want to talk about, and these are the two things you're going to do. So what could get in the way? Yeah, I want you to write down on your form, what do you think might get in the way of you getting what you want?
Yes. Does the weather count?
You can put the weather down. These are your reasons.
There's this lady. She wanted to start up like a women's group after we did that the Freedom and Grace course, and she said, "Yeah, come every Tuesday, and then we're gonna go walk and we'll exercise." I said, "Do you do this like outside?" She says, "Yes." I'm like, "I'm out." I do stuff in the rain.
I'm talking to the man that goes swimming in the middle of winter.
So
It's
that's
just
what I'm saying. Weather.
I think go swimming in the middle of winter.
Oh no,
yeah.
I'll die.
I think paddling is probably a better word than swimming, but yes.
Yeah.
Has everyone got some reasons?
Mm.
Mine is laziness.
Laziness?
I
Okay,
agree.
yeah, share. I wanted you guys to share a couple of reasons. So what are some things, the things you're going to get in the way? Laziness? What else?
Negative thoughts.
Negative thoughts? Yeah.
The weather.
The weather? Anything else? Or
Um,
anybody else want to share?
I have 3 obvious ones.
Yeah.
Finances, energy, and time, as in lack of.
Okay. This is beautiful. Two of the big ones that I want to talk about.
Time is a good one.
So
Yeah.
most people, and this is like, and it happens to me still, yeah? We think that time and money get in the way of what? Of us achieving what we want to achieve. And
Mhm.
it's very rarely either of those things. Like it's just a belief, yeah? And it's usually handed down to us. And it's a very easy excuse, right? I don't have the time. And we usually have a lot of evidence too. Like I'm sure, Rachel, like if you shared with us all the reasons why you have no time, we would actually probably start agreeing with you. Yeah, we'd be like, wow, like there's a lot going on in your life, like you really don't have time. But most of the time, what gets in the way is not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness.
That's why I said the negative thoughts, because it's that
Yeah,
being
like allowing ourselves.
getting a good habit.
Not if it's health that's getting in the way. Not if it's actually your health. I mean, for me, it's about, so I'm asleep most of the day.
Yeah,
I'll start doing in foggy thinking. So I'll be doing reports and I'll just fog out.
yeah,
And there's nothing I can do.
yeah. So that's different. Like, so what I'm talking about, you're talking about is essentially energy, right?
Mm.
Like, so that's a little bit different to the time and the money conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
It's
definitely
totally different. That's what I'm saying. There are reasons that
Totally.
Yeah.
That's where people come from, because
Yeah.
for me with dancing, sometimes because I have to dance full up with my bigger girls, and sometimes I'm in agony,
Yeah.
and I just have to push through.
yeah. So but it is a little bit different. So what I want to point here is that often time and money are the reasons,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And like, don't fall into that trap. Now, I'm not saying that you got loads of resources either. I'm not saying you have loads of time. I'm not saying you have loads of like money to do the things you want to do, whether it's in health or in other areas. But often it's a lack of. It's just like not getting creative. It's not getting.
You can be more organized.
Yeah, and sometimes not asking for help.
Asking for help.
Yeah.
That's one of
I
my
mean,
favorites.
being slightly older, when I was young, I used to always think that it was time and money. If I had the time or if I had the resources, I could do this, this, and this. But as I got older, I realized that it's actually, like if you want something done, you actually give it to the busy person anyway.
Yeah.
And if you want somebody who's really going to do a great job, you give it to someone who's got the least resources, because they're going to be the most motivated.
Yeah.
And so that is, and that's true of your own life as well as motivating others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so I always like to touch on that because it's very easy. What's very easy is for nothing to happen from tonight.
Mhm.
Because we're like, we don't have the time to plan. We don't have the time to do this work. We're too busy. We have kids, we have jobs, we have like cooking, cleaning, like just a lot of stuff, right? So don't let that get in the way. Like if anything, this is the most important, the planning time is one of the most important things that you do. And sometimes you got to go for small gains. Yeah, it might be that you pick one area, you take 1 hour, you work on that, and you pick one thing, which is what the last thing I want you to write down is: what actions could you take towards and you might already be taking them, right? Like if you've already been doing this work, you might jot some things you're already doing. But what actions could you take? Could it be assessing your beliefs? Could it be cutting out the chocolate at night? Could it be the wine? Right? And yeah, like, and sometimes it's just by getting smart. Like I swapped alcohol for sparkling water for the last 4 weeks, and I've missed it a little bit, but I'm like, oh, this is actually quite good. I might keep doing this. It was just supposed to be a detox. Now I'm like, oh, actually, quite like what I'm doing right now. Anyway.
I feel proud of myself. Detoxing myself from a bunch of stuff.
And then I want you to write down when you're going to take that action. And I'm suggesting that you do this in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Well, I'm definitely doing that one tomorrow.
The gym.
The gym.
I like it. Cool. Excellent.
I'm going to dance for 6 hours.
Yes, you are. That is true.
So I can count that as gym life.
That is true. Yeah. So yeah, pick at least one action. Pick some, and even if it's in the next 24 hours, on a book in the time to go and do something. Because again, if you do not book it, this has been a great conversation that we had for the last hour and a half. And when I see you one day, it's like the Wim Hof thing, Rachel. Like, it's a great idea.
Really, yeah.
And none of us are immune to this. The number of times, in fact, one of the personal development courses that changed my life, I put it off for 3 years. I didn't have the money. And now, I probably would, like, I would have, if I had known what I was going to get from it, I would have been like,
yeah,
maybe I should sell that wakeboard.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. So we've reached the end. No one is coming to save you. This is 100% your responsibility. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to spend it with me, delving into some of this stuff. And hopefully it's been valuable and you'll have walked away with at least one thing to do, or one concept. Because it's compounding interest, right? Like the small action you make today that doesn't seem to make any difference. You don't feel any different, like other than maybe like, oh, I did that thing. The sense of accomplishment. Like when you start adding days, weeks, months, years.
And celebrate those wins too.
Yeah.
Because now
And
when
don't
I'm
beat
looking
yourself up for the failures.
Yeah. Yeah.
keep hearing that a lot. Everybody's different. Stop beating yourself up.
If anything, one of the supplement programs that my wife just did, she was like that. One of the things that's plastered on our wall is focus on the actions, not on the results. Like, yeah. So, right. So,
one thing I've also learned is accept your failures, because your failures will eventually teach you something that will help you succeed later on.
oh, there's a book that I'm going to send in the email called Black Box Thinking. And it's basically the reason why the aeronautical profession doesn't make many mistakes anymore, because they love failure. They thrive off it. And it compares to the medical profession, that their ego is a big deal. And like sharing your mistakes is not, I mean, it's changing a little bit now. Yeah, like, yeah, literally. Yeah. So anyway, thank you all for coming. If you have any specific questions, feel free to email me. For those of you who are online, if you can fill out the questionnaire, take a photo and send it to me, or bring it with you for your next appointment. I appreciate it, because your feedback helps me make these things better. I don't take it personally if you don't like something. If anything, I like, yeah. I've started, like Seamus this morning, telling me about my collar being wrapped up in my jumper after I'd already seen about, I don't know, 12 people.
I just thought your wife wasn't happy with you this morning, so she sent you out half dressed. So that'll teach him. The week before you had the black eye, I thought it was the same thing.
You know what's the funniest? One of my girls told me they were at some osteopath or something. she said, she was lying there and she said, "You need like a booger up his nose." I had to watch that whole time. It was so crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. You got to like, so yeah, feedback is good. Feedback is always good, even if it's uncomfortable sometimes. Yeah, it's very good.
Well, actually, if you think about it, I'm glad I did this course because it shows me that I have started taking some action.
Yeah.
I just need to work on that one. Don't know how to get it.
Where's the questionnaire?
Did Justine not email it to you, Rachel?
Oh, perhaps she did. I didn't download the little bits. I thought you were going to put it up on the screen.
Oh no.
Screenshot it.
Right. So you have had no idea what I was talking about for some of the right. Okay. So there was a I'm going to love watching me listen back to this. I'm probably not going to have mentioned the fact that there was a let me not stop sharing my. How do I stop sharing this thing now? Stop share. How do I show myself? Escape. So, can you see me, Rachel?
You've gone black, and the screen of what you were showing before. Oh, there you're back now. I can see you amongst all the other participants. Well, I don't see them
Can you
either.
see me?
Yeah, I see you.
Okay, great. So can you see my so there was a there were two pieces, there were two things that Justine should have sent you. One was a worksheet, and it literally had the titles of the questions I was asking you. So
okay.
like
Apologies, I didn't print them off
it's
before.
fine. You didn't need to print them. You could have just worked from them. They were just Word documents, I think. But anyway, so you can go back because of the reason why I did the exercise with you. One was just to play around with it a little bit, but two was to actually give you alongside the Excel spreadsheet and a structure. You're literally like, great, what do I want? And you write down, what do I want? What do I want? What I think is going to get in the way of me getting what I want. So you actually deal with some of the beliefs that are unconscious, right? Because a lot of the beliefs, they're just so sneaky. Like, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. I don't have time. And even myself, like, I still get caught out, and I still like, oh, hang on, there's a belief that isn't serving me.
Just leading to the life you want, the life you love.
Yeah.
You know, there's a section leading to the life you love.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Like, and resignation. Like,
Yeah.
I'm resigned. I'm resigned that it can be any other way. So yeah, there's and that's anyway. So you've got that worksheet, so you can keep working through it. And you can always email me if you've got any questions. But yeah, so thank you all for being on here. George, when I see you again, I would love to see how it went for you. And yeah, send through your. So there was another one, Rachel, which is a feedback form. So if you could do that and bring it back with you next time, we'll still take a photo and send it in. We'd love that. Okay?
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Oh, yeah, I look forward to seeing you all again next time.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you, Gareth.